I'm Amber from Amber's Craft Week Blog, and I am super excited to bring you today's craft. In this video, I'm going to show you how I turned this romper I'm wearing into my wedding dress. So here is the romper in question. I got it back in 2018 from Charlotte Russe. I thought it looked very Alice in Wonderland-y, so I got it for an Alice in Wonderland costume / Alice in Wonderland Disney bounding. And I actually have two of these rompers, so this is the identical twin to the one I wore on my wedding day. It has a slight discoloration on this cup, so this is the version that I wear more, so that way I can preserve the other one for special occasions. So why would I DIY something as important as my wedding dress, especially when I'm still a very novice sewer? Well, there are basically two reasons. The first one is money. So back when I started wedding planning, it was in October 2019. At the time, I was a grad assistant teaching Physics 111, and Brian was finishing up his degree. He was on the GI Bill that last semester, and so he was going to graduate in December. Didn't have a job lined up yet. Not that we doubted he could get one, because he's a very talented individual and very marketable field, but we didn't have like this settled financial future, and we had a couple big expenses crop up, like our car needed some serious rust repair, and that cost a lot of money. And just securing a venue was going to cost us a good chunk of money, and so the dress was something I wanted to save money on. Now, I can't remember how much this romper cost originally. I think it was between $25 and $35. But at the time we started planning, I already had this romper in question, and so all I had to buy was an elastic, some tulle, and some thread. And between all those materials, I don't think it cost me more than $50. I do have the exact amount somewhere, but I lost track of them, so I'm just going to say very generously, it probably cost me about $50 for all the materials I needed to make the overskirt, which is what transforms this from a romper into a dress. My other main reason was kind of a style thing. While I think white wedding dresses are absolutely gorgeous and look incredible on so many brides, they're not really my jam. In fact, I'm not much of a dress person to begin with. When I was thinking about what I wanted to wear for my wedding, I started looking at prom rompers, and I saw this cool one online, and I'll see if I can post a picture for you. And I was looking at it, and I didn't absolutely love it. Like, it looked good. I knew I wanted something that wasn't white, and since I was thinking Alice in Wonderland theme, I was thinking I wanted to go blue. And so I saw this prom romper, and I'd come across it previously, but I had saved it to a Pinterest board, and I was like, that looks like something that I could wear to my wedding. But I didn't love it. It was like $400 or something, which, granted, in the scheme of like wedding dresses isn't bad, but I didn't want to spend that much money. And I was like, the key thing that takes this from a regular romper to a prom romper, a kind of a formal thing, is that overskirt. And I bet you, if I bought some tulle, I could make an overskirt. So the inspiration came partly from that image I saw. It also came from a sketch that I had done back in January of 2019, or actually I think it was December of 2018. So in December of 2018, I wanted to start up an art journal, and I ended up not getting very far into it. So I did a few pages of an art journal. I wanted to do like a whole year, a new art prompt every day or something like that. I quickly lost interest, but the first page that I did, I was envisioning my dream formal outfit. So I have at the top, it says Art Journal Day 1, Design Your Ideal Formal Wear. And so I started sketching out a romper, and then I kind of added an overskirt to it. And then I started thinking, well, this looks kind of like Alice in Wonderland. So I decided I'd add like a rose belt and the bow, and I was like, okay, there we go. And when I was coloring in the romper, I decided to go with blue for Alice in Wonderland, and I was like, I basically have that romper already. Like, all I'd have to do is make an overskirt, and I would have this. See? That's my sketch. So really, it was that drawing and that image that inspired what became my wedding dress. So I bought a bunch of blue tulle. I actually bought a very small sample at first. I liked what I saw. And then I bought a bunch more blue glitter tulle and made this maxi overskirt. I do apologize for the video footage of the dress construction process. When I started filming the making of the dress, I was using my phone camera, which isn't the greatest to begin with. It's not terrible, like I think it's still very, you can see it, but it's not the same quality as footage as you're gonna get from this camera we're working with now. And also, this was before I had done a lot of YouTube videos. I have some verbal tics and I'm trying to work them out. At the time, I said a lot of ums. So when you watch that video footage, I'm gonna say something and then there'll be an and then another part of a sentence and an I was filming everything directly. I wasn't taking the time. Like now when I film a video, I will say a line multiple times if I need to. So you get a nice clean cut and don't have so many of those ums and stuff like that. So apologies for the footage. I really wish I had better quality footage because this was such an exciting process. But it is what it is, and hopefully you still will enjoy it. So here is the romper in question. It's a nice, pretty blue romper, and basically what I'm trying to do is make a maxi overskirt for it using some tulle. So to do this project, in addition to a romper, you're going to need some tulle. Here is a small sample of some very pretty blue tulle that I bought on Etsy, which I'll link to below. It's blue glitter tulle. You're also going to need an elastic. Originally, I was hoping to use this elastic for the waistband itself, but it's the wrong color of blue, so we're going to be covering over it with some ribbon later. But you need some elastic. You'll need some thread, which I have right here, in a matching color, and then you'll need a sewing machine too. And lastly, if you want to cover up your elastic, you're going to need some ribbon. I have two different colors of ribbon here. I'm not sure yet which one I'm going to go for. So I figure once we're done making the skirt, we'll figure out which one we want to use to make the sash. So those are the basic materials. Now let's get started. So the first thing you want to do, once you have your materials, well I guess even before you figure out how much tulle you want, is to figure out how long you want your skirt to be and how wide layers you want. We're basically making a rectangle skirt. So the first thing you need to know is how long do you want it to be. I wanted mine floor length, so I went with 40 inches, which is a little bit longer than the measurement from my waist down to my toes, giving me a little bit of wiggle room with that length there. I figured if I cut it too long, I could always trim it later, but if you cut it too short, then you're out of luck. Now, with rectangle skirts, generally you want about at least 3 times the length of your waist measurement. So for me, I have a 24-inch waist, so 72 inches is 3 times my waist measurement, and that's 2 yards on the nose. So I went with 40 inches by 72 inches. But the longer you go, the puffier your skirt will be, kind of like the more it will flare out-ish. So I went with 3 yards, I went 2 yards, sorry. But depending on your waist measurements, you may want to go with more or less. Now, one thing to know about my design too is I want it open in the front, like this. So I kind of very roughly sketched out an idea of what I want it to look like. And so I was taking that into account too when I was figuring out how much tulle to use. Again, since it's not going to close all the way in the front, I can get away with a little bit less. You're also going to have to figure out how many layers of tulle you want. Do you want just one? Tulle tends to be very transparent, so you may want multiples. I ended up going with 4 layers of tulle. So I took this big long lengths of tulle and I cut out 4 segments that were 40 inches wide and 72 inches long, and that was the first step. Now, since my overskirt is going to be open in the front, I wanted to figure out a way to, I didn't want all the layers kind of like open and hanging out. I wanted them all sewn together, so I just did a stitch right across the ends, either end, so the 40-inch segments either side, and then flipped it. So I'll show you what that looks like. This here is part of the cloth. You can see it's very long, but what I did was I took the 4 layers. So I took the 4 layers and I just sewed right across the edge, so you can kind of see that. And then I reached in between layers 2 and 3, so if you numbered them going 1, 2, 3, 4, and basically open it up so I can close the seam inside this. Now the downside to tulle is that it is very transparent, so you can still kind of see the seam a little bit. I don't think it's going to be an issue, but if it ends up being an issue, we'll probably just put a little bit of ribbon or something over it. Now this is sewn up, and we're ready to go on to the next step. So for the next step, you want to take your elastic and cut it down so it's about the same size as your waist, maybe an inch less. And the key thing is you want it to sit snugly across your waist. So this is actually my scrap piece of elastic, but basically, you know, you want it to sit comfortably around your waist. So if it's your exact waist measurement, it may sit a little loosely. So you may want to cut it just a smidge shorter. Once you have your elastic cut to the right size, you're just going to sew across the two ends together. I have about a 1/2 inch seam allowance there, and then you're just going to try it on and make sure that it fits snugly. If it's not tight enough, then you can always sew in a little bit more and cut off that bit. But if it's too tight, then you'll have to get another elastic because there's not much you can do about that. Now the nice thing about elastic is that it does stretch, so you should probably be alright. It's probably more likely to be too loose than too tight as long as you keep it roughly the size of your waist. So I've had a slight change of plans in my process. My first attempt, I tried to sew on the elastic waistband, pinning and stretching, and my sewing machine was not very happy with that. So I ended up having to take off the elastic. It almost ruined the elastic. The stitches were not coming out very easily. So what I've decided to do instead is to gather the skirt like this, and I'm going to leave the elastic open, and I'm going to sew this onto the elastic by hand. So for the next part, I've gathered it down to about 20 inches or so, because I want a little bit of a gap. So you can see when I pull it on, it comes most of the way around, but isn't completely close up. So we're going to sew it onto the elastic by hand, and then I'm going to use some kind of fastener, probably a hook and eye closure. I don't know if I have any on hand right now, so I may have to pin it temporarily so you can see what it's going to look like. But that's a rough idea. So now let's get to sewing. Okay, so now I have the elastic on. As I mentioned before, the next step would be to add the fasteners, but unfortunately I don't have any hook and eye closures on hand. So what I'm going to do for now is temporarily fasten it together with a safety pin, pick out my ribbon, and then I'll show you what the completed look. It's the day before the wedding, and I finally got around to making the belt for my dress. Originally I was just planning on having a piece of ribbon that I would tie around my waist. However, I think getting the bow just right is going to be really hard. This ribbon is a little finicky to work with, so I figured the easier option would be to just make a belt. All I did for this was I cut a bit of the ribbon that fits snugly around my waist, and then sewed some snaps onto either end, and it snaps into place. And then you can just spin it around. Although probably I'll just have someone else fasten it for me so that I don't have to fasten it myself on the day of and spin it around like that. But so that's the belt. But if we get a chance to have our fancy wedding next year, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bow to cover the back. I'll probably sew snaps to the ribbon and to the bow and just have it snap on the belt, and then snap the bow over the closure, and you'll have a nice pretty ribbon in the back. Although that may not be necessary because I will be wearing my hair down, and so my hair is probably going to cover this anyway, I was just realizing. And here is the finished product. Unfortunately I had to rotate my camera because there's nowhere inside my house where I could actually stand far enough away for you to see this. I know you still can't see my feet. I'm going to stand up on my step stool in just a moment to give you a fuller view. And the problem with bringing this outside, as we learned on the wedding day, is that bugs will crawl between the tulle layers. So if you end up wanting to make an overskirt of your own, I would definitely recommend sewing the bottom shut, and that way the bugs can't get in. And so hopefully now this gives you a view of most of the dress. So this is the front. I'm going to try and turn around and show you the back, turning very slowly in these high heels. There's kind of, the band has gotten a little bunched up in the back. That could probably be straightened out pretty easily, but at the moment it's a little bunched. So we'll just deal with it. So let's talk about the pros and cons. The biggest pro was this was so comfortable. Wedding dresses usually are very bulky and encumbering. This one, it was light, it was breezy, it was easy to move in. If you are looking for comfort, it doesn't get much better than that unless you just went with the romper on its own. Like, the overskirt does add a little extra bulk, but it's very light tulle, so it was not hard to move in or anything like that. And you could easily take it off. I ended up forgetting to finish it, so I still just have a safety pin holding the elastic in place. So if you need to get out of it, you just have to unsnap the belt, which unsnaps very easily. Take out the safety pin, and then you're good. So super easy to get in and out of, super easy to move around in. Very, very breezy. Again, like it was a hot day, but I didn't really feel the heat as much because this fabric is just so breathable. I think it looked gorgeous. I don't know if that was just because I was so happy to be marrying Brian or what, but you know, I felt like a princess. And I've been told it reminds people of Cinderella, so you know, if you want kind of like a Disney princess type look, definitely would work for that. Other benefits are, well, they say you can only wear your wedding dress once, and generally that's true, but not if you DIY your own. I mean, sure, you're probably not going to wear the overskirt all the time, but you can rewear the romper very easily. So I'm getting a lot more wear out of this than just the one time, or just the 2 times if we do our vow renewal next year. I also will probably use the overskirt for Alice in Wonderland Disney bounding. I have a little bow I made for this, which I'll put on in a moment. I was going to wear that for the ceremony, but I used double-sided tape instead of glue to attach the bow, and that turned out not to be the best idea. The wind decided that it did not like the bow, and so we went without the bow. And also it's not white, so again, in terms of wearability, it's easy to rewear. If you had a white romper instead, you could probably rewear that because it's not going to look too wedding-y. But I think also because it's blue, it's even easier to rewear. So to recap, the pros are it's easy to get in and out of, it is breezy and breathable, you can rewear it, and it looks really pretty, at least in my personal biased opinion. Now, we'll talk about the cons. The biggest con I found was that because this tulle layer was open, and because this is floor length, bugs decided to crawl up in the tulle layers, so I had to have some assistance from my sister and Brian to kind of shake the bugs out periodically throughout the day. So that was a bit of a con. The other cons are, so I used 2 snaps to fasten this belt on, and anytime I bent over, it came unclasped. I mean, obviously it doesn't look like a professionally made wedding dress. I never ended up finishing the clasping mechanism on the belt, so that is still like being held in place by a safety pin, which isn't ideal. This ribbon is bunching a little in the back. The back isn't particularly pretty, so I was thinking about maybe making a big bow to attach in back, something that would kind of cover up like the awkward bunching of the ribbon in the back. It shouldn't be bunching, I'm not sure why it is. It should be lying flat. I think it's just carelessness on my part that it's not, and probably if you were to do this on your own, you could make it very nice and lovely and all that sort of stuff, have it lie flat. But I would say the pros absolutely outweigh the cons 100%, and so definitely very pleased with this. And if we get to do a vow renewal ceremony next year, I would absolutely love to be able to wear this for that. I don't know how well you can see that. I'll kind of bend down, make sure you can see the bow. Now, I have a perpetual problem with hair bows. I'm always looking for the perfect Alice in Wonderland hair bow, and it seems like no matter how big I make them, they are never big enough. So for this one, I bought the thickest, well, the widest satin ribbon, black satin ribbon that I could find at Joann. And I was like, okay, this is going to be it. Because I've made Alice in Wonderland hair bows twice before. I've posted one on my craft blog. The other one I didn't post as a craft, but you've probably seen it in pictures on my craft blog. And then I got this one. I was like, this has to be this is going to have to work. This is going to be big enough. It's still not big enough, so I'm still looking for an even larger bow. But I think it works reasonably well for an Alice in Wonderland look. So if you wanted to use this overskirt to do kind of a very fancy Alice in Wonderland look, then you could do that as well. Like maybe if you had an Alice in Wonderland themed ball you were going to. UMaine, the Society of Women Engineers, puts on what's called Engineering Formal. It's just a formal dance, and one year it was Alice in Wonderland themed. Now I unfortunately did not have this to wear to it, but but if there were to be another Alice in Wonderland themed formal dance, I absolutely would wear something like this. Probably this exactly, but maybe with a bigger bow. Oh, one more con is that this does shed glitter, especially initially. So that is something to be aware of, is that if you do get this particular tulle, it is beautiful, it photographs really nicely, the glitter is so pretty, but it will shed glitter everywhere. Alright, this is what the dress looks like. So, it's got its little side slit. This. So the one downside is it's filling with bugs. They're somehow crawling up through the tulle layers and getting trapped. So if you were to make this of your own, I might recommend sewing the bottom so nothing can get in. But on the whole, I think it turned out really nicely. So let's pull. That's probably good. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, I'd love it if you gave it a like or let me know in the comments. This was such a fun video to do. And again, I wish the making process had been a little bit better footage-wise, but I had so much fun with this. And I'm really excited that I get to show you this. Because it was such a key part of the day. And so I'm really glad that it worked out as well as it did. And I just think it's absolutely beautiful. And very me. Like, it just worked for me. If you want to see more wedding crafts, I've already done a bunch of wedding crafts on this channel. You can also check out my craft blog, amberscraftweek.blogspot.com. There is some overlap between the YouTube channel and my blog, but there are also some crafts that I only have in pictorial form. Like the bouquets, when I was making them, I only took pictures of, so you'll find the bouquets over on my craft blog. Thanks for watching and have a great day.